Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Market Talk. We're delighted to be joined today by Lee Brookes, who is the Food Development Manager at McMullen and Sons, and also Ben Aird, Key Account Manager at Charvet Premier Ranges. Thank you to both of you for joining us. Great to see you. Lee, we'll kick off with you first. Do you want to bring us up to date on how many sites you've reopened since pubs were allowed to trade outdoors, and also are you expecting to get the rest of the estate open once 17th of May comes around?
Yeah, firstly, thanks for inviting me on. It's an absolute pleasure. But yeah, we've been really lucky. We've managed to get all bar two of our pubs open, one of which is under refurbishment, so that wouldn't have reopened anyway. And the second one is there's no garden. It is a pavement in London, which probably would have been about 6 tables, not quite enough to open. So in that sense, we've been very, very lucky. And the plan is to have both of those open from May the 17th. So that's the plan at the moment. All systems go, and I can't see anything stopping that at the minute. Touch wood.
Fantastic. So how were the preparations in the lead up to obviously getting the sites open in April?
Anything from marquees, umbrellas, any sort of wind and rain shelter, because at the very beginning of this, the weather forecast was looking very dark and gloomy, a bit like it is today. So we were looking at ways to keep our guests warm, keep them dry, keep our teams warm and dry, to be fair. So we've had a number of blankets, hot water bottles, anything we could think of. And then obviously when we came to opening, we were blessed with a bit of sunshine. It still got cold in the evening, but at least the sun was out, so it took the chill off. And up until really this weekend, the weather's been on our side. So yeah, it was really preparing. So from a menu side, we looked at smaller menus, making it tighter, just to keep the food waste down, because we weren't sure what was going to happen. This was unknown territory for everybody. We didn't know if we were going to be busy, whether it would be quiet, whether it would just be for a drink, whether it would be all these questions that everyone had. We weren't sure of. We prepared for for everything. Well, we thought we did. I hope we did. And we got everything open, which is the key bit. So a nice tight menu. We checked all the equipment beforehand, got the teams back earlier than actual opening. We did remote training. So again, in the COVID world where we can't meet up, so we did training videos and sent that all to the team for all the new dishes. I spoke to the chefs on Zoom and did like a little foodie quiz just to check the learning, make sure that and it's good to talk to people really more than anything else, not just check what they're doing. That wasn't the point of it. It was just, are you okay? Does it make sense? Because it's new for me, it was new for them. And we just wanted to make sure that they had everything that they needed. And if there was any questions where we'd normally be in a kitchen together, we could iron it out in all readiness for opening. Yeah. And on top of that, we had suppliers. We weren't sure, we're going to have everything when we reopened, we had a few takeaway offers going on. To go from takeaway offer to full menus, we weren't sure if our supply chain could cope, whether we'd break it, in day one, or we'd run out of simple things or run out of the bizarre things. We weren't sure what was going to happen. So there's a lot of planning and sort of guesswork put into it. And luckily we come out the other side and the kitchen's open, pubs opened, the guests have been fantastic and the teams have been amazing, and we've been blessed with some amazing customers, and the numbers that we've been seeing over the last 2-3 weeks have been phenomenal. But without the team delivering it wouldn't have counted. The team have been truly, they've been heroes, real heroes. They've worked some serious hours, too many hours to be fair. It is something we're conscious of, and how many hours they work, something we're looking at. But like everybody at the moment, we're trying to recruit at the same time, and I think we're trying to all pick up chefs where we can, and chefs pre-COVID were hard to get hold of, and chefs coming out of COVID are even harder. Not sure what's happened there, but it's just a few challenges, a few bumps in the road, but we're getting there. We're glad to be open. That's the key bit, really.
Certainly, yeah.
Good stuff, Lee. So we'll come back to you in a sec, but in the meantime, we will bring Ben into the conversation. So you are actually quite fairly new to Charvet's business. You joined them in September last year, I believe. So it represented a bit of more of a focus on national accounts and chains. So could you kind of tell me about what you've been doing on that score and how things are progressing for Charvet?
So yeah, joined Charvet in September, and then not too long after that went into a second lockdown. But we were very proactive during that second lockdown. We held webinars for all of our dealers and distributors to kind of make them aware of the changes, but also reintroduce them to the product line and some of the developments within the product lines. I think we reached out to just over 160 people within dealers and distributors, and each webinar, some webinars were running in excess of 2.5 hours. So there's a lot of questions and answers going backwards and forwards on that. So that was really positive. We also held an event called Chef Talk, which was hosted by Johnny Bone of Core, and we invited hundreds of chefs from all over the country to come in and ask Johnny some questions and get Johnny gave us his views on lockdown and how that end of the market was progressing really and what they were doing to get through it. But with the group side of things, what we've been doing, we've been talking to various chains and various people within the pub sector. For me, the pub sector is a very important sector, and it is growing rapidly. And I also think that it's arguably one of the hardest, some of the hardest working kitchens are in this sector. They have a wide menu that caters for all different sorts of tastes. And we were talking to them to develop and get an understanding of what their needs were really, and developing, in some cases, some very rigid templates to make sure we can keep up with the demand of their kitchens, because this, what the feedback we were getting is that they need equipment that works as hard as the chefs that use them. And Charvet is renowned for beautifully finished, bespoke pieces of equipment that fit the needs of that kitchen and the dining room that it serves. But we also do this an incredibly heavy duty and versatile modular range, and that's the range we were developing with the pub market, and having input from the likes of Lee and a couple of other people in this industry allowed us to develop these templates and actually develop new product as well that is going to provide versatility and is truly durable and heavy duty. As we start to go into the reopening, I think we're going to see more of a need for it. And the feedback we were getting from some chefs was that they do see a benefit in buying heavy duty and basically buying once. And there's added benefits to that as well, such as staff retention. If you can get hold of recruit staff, recruit chefs, and say, look, this is your kitchen, this is where you're going to be working, and they can look at it and see that they've got this Charvet range in there. And some of these chefs may have trained on Charvets in colleges and through their chef life and their chef experience. It's just allowed us to get the feedback from people that actually use the equipment and really develop a product range that is fit for purpose, that is going to provide consistency, durability, all those words that you align with heavy duty for 10, 15 and even 20 years down the line. And that's what Charvet is about. They don't make anything other than heavy duty. So we want to put it in the hands of the people that use it, every day, put it in their hands, get their feedback and make a product that's truly fit for purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I say, the pub sector hasn't traditionally been one that's been associated with Charvet. So like for a price point perspective, has that been a challenge from that side of things as well?
Not really, because people understand you get what you pay for, kind of from that point of view, and the price, it's not as out of reach as people may think. The price point, it really isn't that big a deal. When you look at the bespoke side of things, yeah, of course it is, it's bespoke. But the modular side of things, you get a heavy duty piece of equipment that is built from the best possible materials that will last the test of time, which isn't going to break the bank on the capital expenditure, on the initial payment. It's going to be installed by us. You're going to get all the warranty and all the benefits that come with Charvet, but the life cycle savings of having that piece of equipment, so reduced downtime, reduced service costs, all those sort of things come into play, and the return on investment is much quicker in terms of saying against your initial payment. You don't have to, like I said, it comes from as a chef from a pub group, kind of towards about when I joined. He actually said to me he would rather buy once and not overspec, but buy the right piece of equipment.
Can I just add to that? I completely agree, and certainly from adding the modular piece rather than going down a bespoke route. From my background and certainly from a pub perspective, when a fryer's gone or a grill's gone or something, you wouldn't then, Charvet was always on our back of our mind of needing a bespoke item, and that's when the price would have ruled them out for us. We wouldn't have looked at them before, but now because we can buy these modular units which can replace and pop in exactly where we want them to go, we can now be looking at Charvet and saying, actually, because we know that how good the quality is and how good the build is, and they will last, we can put it in now, because then when the next bit of kit goes, we can then put the next modular bit, and it can keep on adding to it that way, rather than having to, we're not always lucky enough to have the budget to revamp a kitchen from scratch every time. So sometimes it's just to replace a singular bit of kit, which is where I think Charvet have really worked hard and probably targeted the pub sector, maybe, I don't know, as a little bit. Charvet is in places that you wouldn't expect to find it. I mean, there are pub chains that have been acquiring sites over the end of 2020 and continue to acquire and build their estate, and they are picking up Charvet equipment that was installed into these sites some time ago. I think one case was we had one piece of equipment that went in 2007. We went in before opening and carried out services and checks and everything. There's minimal issues with it, and that's a decent time frame for a piece of equipment to still be running in good condition. And it's about good when you look at pub groups or restaurant groups or anything like that. The reason that people keep going back, and the reason that they have a strong customer base, is consistency. You can order the same dish over and over again, and it's what you're going to get, and that's kind of where Charvet comes from, this consistency. Over 80 years we've been building professional equipment. I think it was in 1934 we launched the first modular range, and we've been developing these product lines, as I've said, with the people that use them and the environments that they work in. And the feedback we get from our customers is the most important thing. That allows us to develop a product range that is truly fit for purpose. And you look at the evolution of the Pro 800 series, which is the product line that has made its way into these pub chains. This has the widest ranges of equipment, more options than a pub would need. But again, Charvet isn't. The pubs are showing a new market for Charvet to develop into. It's not a market we've always been in pubs, but not at the volume when you talk about the groups and the chains and things. So it's about making sure we take all of that heritage and all of that experience and keep moving it forward and developing it. And I think we were talking about it recently. It was a revolutionary innovation that allowed Charvet to develop its first product line in like 1934, but we're now into the evolution of that innovation. So it's evolutionary innovation now, and keep developing this product range, adding to it, developing it, making sure it's got options for the pubs in London and sites in London that have power restrictions and things like that. It's a fantastic product range. The fact that when you talk about your bespoke range, you've got those chassis that are fully bespoke, but the components, the burners, all the elements that make up that product line, that's all in the modular system as well. So you get all of that technology going to something which put in the hands of everyday
people, everyday chefs, if you will, not just your Michelin starred and rosetted chefs, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And some great points there about, I think, some of the key issues and trends facing, pub kitchens today. Lee, if we turn the conversation back to yourself, can you describe what a typical McMullen pub kitchen looks like, and what's the most critical equipment to deliver your menu as far as you're concerned?
Well, I'd say probably the most critical, and what's something that's evolved over since I've been with McMullen's, I would say, will be a combination oven. That's probably been the biggest thing for us. Just gives us that versatility, so we can steam things off as well as bake things. We can overnight roast, all those programmable functions that enable us to do the food that we do. We have certainly changed our focus on how we cook, and certainly changed our processes on how we cook. And we need those ranges and that to enable us to do it. We have 6 or so concepts that we use, so each kitchen is ever so slightly different. But every new kitchen that we're building and every new kitchen that we're refurbing, including the one I was speaking about earlier, we are putting in a combination oven, because I believe that's more important to the chef than I don't want to say a name, but an accelerated cooking platform, shall I say. The combination oven gives us a more even cook. It finishes the product better, and we work very closely with manufacturers that make things to our recipes, that actually make things bespoke for us. But we need those combination ovens to deliver the same quality that goes out to the guests. And when we use an accelerated cooking method, that will change the way that finished process will be. So that for me is one of the key bits of key bits of kit that we have in McMullen's. After that, I would say, I've got to say, fryers. It's got to be fryers. We do serve a lot of fish and chips, so we do need to make sure that we've got the right fryer that can cope with that, and can keep up the demand, especially with the chip, the volume of chip going through. We are in the pub industry, and that's one of the key things we do. And the quality of chip is really important. So if I don't have a good fryer, I don't have the quality of product coming out. So they're probably the 2 key bits for us.
Okay, great. And has this whole COVID period, has that forced through a lot of menu change for you, or have you kept focused on the existing sort of menu strategy that you had prior to the pandemic?
A difficult one to answer, that one. It has forced a lot of change. That's fact. When we first went into lockdown, we were working on smaller menus for when we came out the other side. Just removing some of the complex dishes, our lower selling dishes, just so we could focus on getting open and working that way. But very quickly after coming out of lockdown 1, we realized we had the scope, we had the manpower, and we had the kitchen team that could then put our menus back. And then obviously we're back into a lockdown. So at that point, pretty much all of our concepts have had new menus developed. So myself and my development chef, we've been locked in our training kitchen, and we've been focusing on brand new menus. There's also a lot of menus that we've created that we couldn't use. So for things like veganuary, we spent, honestly, I couldn't even tell you how many hours it was. We've developed some dishes that we're really proud of. And yes, I will use them. They won't go to waste, but it was all that work getting veganuary ready and then to not being able to use it. And to a point, same with Christmas. We spent so much time getting our Christmas menus ready in lockdown 1, thinking we'd get to use them. I think we've used some of them for a week. Some of them a bit longer. I think we had 2 pubs open up until Christmas Eve. That was it. That's all we had. Just because of the geographics of the tiering system, we had 2, but very quick, at the last minute, even they were closed. So yeah, we've developed a lot of menus. Some have not been used, some I hope to reuse, and some will never be used. But the majority are live now, which is good. So there's been a lot of, it's an emotional roller coaster, really, isn't it? Because you've created these menus that you're really proud of, and like I say, you've been doing it in isolation. So it's literally just been a few of us in a training kitchen working on these dishes, bringing food to life. for it not to have a life is the most, I don't even know how to explain it. It's you know, it's satisfying work that you've done it and you're ready to go and you're really proud of. For it not to be used was like, oh, that's just, did I waste my time? Did I not? I don't feel like it's a waste of time, but there is that question of, if you haven't used it, what's going to happen? So, and you know, 12 months in food, will those dishes still be relevant? That'll be the big question. When I go to use Veganuary next year, will these dishes be good enough? Will they stand the test of time? I won't know until January. So yeah, it'll be interesting. It will be interesting. But it has changed the way we do things. It's changed the way we focus on menus. It's certainly changed the way I look at even the build up to writing the menu, and even after the menu. So looking at taking something as simple as our best sellers. We don't generally mess with the best sellers, you know, fish and chips, as I've mentioned, you know, but what we have had to do is, where we've introduced new dishes, we've had to revisit the classics, revisit the menu must-haves and say, are they still good enough? And it's made us take a step back and say, if we're doing that much better, can we do fish and chips better? Can we do pie better? You know, there's been a few questions that we've been able to stand back and have a good look. And in some cases we've revamped, tweaked, and it is only a tweak because fish and chips is fish and chips. So we've changed the batter, maybe changed the beer that we put with it. So little things like that will make, I think, will make a big difference to the end product.
Okay.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed that effort doesn't go to waste then. I hope
Absolutely.
that you get to deploy those menu developments at some point. So Ben, just coming back to you then, obviously Lee's been talking about how COVID has changed his business. So how do you feel COVID has changed Charvet's business then?
I think not, obviously I was only joining in September. I have a limited view on this, but I'd just like to say something about Lee's previous point, if I may. It was when he talks about developing the dishes and the menus and the seasonality and everything that comes through that. One of the things that kept coming up when we were doing our research and development and talking to the guys that use the equipment, it was all about versatility and making sure we could put a cook line together that was versatile, would stand the test of time and could accommodate menu changes, and without having to completely rethink pieces of equipment, make sure you've got something in certain pieces of equipment that came up time after time. And that's where we developed the new griddles and the larger griddle plates and things like that for that sort of development of seasonal menus. And comes back to my point about the pub sector changing as well. I just think it's going to be so important. And you look at some of the pictures on social media this morning of people huddled round tables yesterday just with umbrellas, and you just think that's testament to the British public, I think. But the fact they're actually going out and say, let's go out and support these businesses, it shows willing, and that's what we have to do. So go back to how has COVID affected Charvet? Not massively. We've still been pushing on. We've done some huge installations over into 2020, moving into 2021. I think the one thing I would say has possibly changed is our approach to the market. So reaching out with our product webinars, our chef talk events and things like that, that was a way of getting in front of our customers and developing those relationships with everyone being in their home offices and with travel restrictions, etc. We definitely haven't done any factory visits over the last 12 months, but they will resume because we think it's key that people come out and see what we're developing. Also, we've just, I would suggest the way that we've approached the dealers and things like that has changed slightly in terms of making sure we get in front of them and having time with them, be on a different platform. But outside of that, we're still seeing interest, and it's kind of a good timing for us as the market is changing for us to explore new markets, and that's what we'll continue to do and keep breaking down the barriers of what Charvet is and what it can do for people, because there is an element of people think we only make bespoke, and it's just one thing that we do. We have to shout a little bit loud about our modular range and tell people how good it is. And that's what we've been doing, and we've been getting feedback and developing it to a point which is ready for market now, and will generate interest, we think.
Yeah, that's great. Because there was also an announcement from you guys earlier this year that you're freezing prices. So, I mean, that's got to be difficult this year, given all sorts of pressures on the market and materials and shipping costs and that kind of thing. So, how are you managing to cope with that?
It's just something that had to be considered, and we've did it with the view to freeze the prices now, and kind of just, it's more to support than anything else, and push and make sure that we can provide our customers that level of support that they would expect from a brand. Well, Charvet Premier Ranges with some Premier brand really, but we'll continue to listen to our customers and take their advice on board, and that's how we'll kind of drive that one through. It was a bold move, but it was something that everyone at Charvet UK Premier Ranges felt needed to be done, and we'll continue. I think we'll keep looking at ways we can support through COVID, and I think hopefully we're coming through the end. We're in the last lap of it, if you will, but it has to be a continued support. We have to continue to provide support, and we have to provide support now through recovery, and that's what we'll do with making sure we can get our templates into people and make sure we can provide customers the support as more restaurants open up their indoor spaces and everything. That's when we're probably going to be called into action again in a couple more weeks to carry out services and make sure everything's working to spec. But yeah, do what we do.
Fantastic. Well, great to get that overview from both of you. We're just about out of time now, so thank you very much for joining us on this week's episode. Good luck, Lee, with the reopening program, and obviously good luck, Ben, with the work that you're doing in the pub sector and many others. And for everybody watching or listening, join us next week for another episode of Market Talk. Thank you.